Welcome to the Reboot Wellness Podcast, your go-to space for insightful conversations on all things mental health, fertility, fitness, personal growth, mindfulness, workplace well-being, and so much more. I'm Vivian Ugochi, your host. So Dr. Seyfried, you've been at the forefront of cancer research for many years. If you had to explain your work in simple terms, how would you describe what you do?
Well, thank you. What we do right now is we are developing therapeutic strategies to manage cancer as a metabolic disorder using diet-drug combinations to target the weakness and vulnerability of tumor cells. So we have found and followed the original work of Dr. Otto Warburg from Germany, who studied cancer as a metabolic disorder since 100 years ago. So we have carefully evaluated what he did and what he said, and then clarified some of the misunderstandings and misconceptions, and also developed new ideas and information to support what he originally found.
Well, that's awesome.
I'm working on a major paper right now, the Warburg hypothesis and the rise of the mitochondrial metabolic theory of cancer.
Nice. That sounds exciting. I should think. Okay, so but cancer is something that affects like millions of people worldwide, but it's hard to gauge just how big of an issue it is on a global scale, right? So from your research and expertise, how would you assess the extent of the cancer problem globally?
Well, certainly it's a very significant health issue. I think a lot of the problem, or a significant amount of the problem with cancer, is the fear of being treated for the disease. Mm-hmm. There is a global world paralysis of thinking that the only way to manage this disorder is through toxic, horrific, medieval treatment kind of programs,
like chemotherapy.
Well, you have surgical mutilation.
Ooh.
You have poisonous therapies, and you have toxic radiation, and you have immunotherapies that could potentially kill you before the cancer does.
The cancer does.
So you put all that together, and I think it makes people very fearful of not only the disease, mm-hmm. but the way it is treated. And I think most of that will disappear as they realize that cancer is a metabolic disorder, that we can manage it without the crazy toxicity and the other approaches that we're using today.
I see that, but I can't help to wonder though, why were these toxic treatments? Why were they the first ones to come out before? Why didn't the doctors of the time think, oh, this might be a metabolic disease, as opposed to making it a thing where there has to be all these other extra factors and extra things used in the treatment? So why do you think that approach was used first?
Yeah, well, I think that it was discovered that certain powerful chemical poisons could kill and stop the growth of cancer cells. So mustard gas, I think, was one of the original drugs. These were poisonous drugs to kill human beings. But if you use the drug in a lower dose, you could kill cancer cells. So I think when you look at cancer, what is it? It's called cell division out of control. Okay. Mm. So when you treat. So it was found that some of these poisonous chemicals used in lower doses, it would kill the replicating tumor cells, but make the body very, very sick and unhealthy. And that's why so many of these cancer drugs cause the hair to fall out.
Yeah.
The gut, the microbiome, diarrhea, fatigue, nausea, vomiting. all these kinds of things, because what you're doing is essentially trying to stop cell division out of control. And, more and more poisonous chemicals were modified to be, if you use them at lower dosages, you could kill the tumor cell, but almost kill the patient, not quite. And then in some cases, the patient would survive, and the cancer would be gone. But many times they would suffer, and still do to this day. It's terrible, terrible.
I can imagine that. I think thinking about it as well, one of the really scary things I see about cancer is the hair falling off, the weakness, the paleness. They just look like walking deads, in my opinion. So it's like, why does that even happen? And before I started doing my research to have this conversation with you, I didn't know that it was the treatment that was even causing the hair loss. I thought the hair loss came with the cancer. It's like one of the consequences for the cancer. Whole time is this treatment. So I really like that you have dedicated your life to making people understand, this disease better in a way that it doesn't work against us, right?
That's why we developed the press pulse therapeutic strategy for managing cancer. And our new big paper just came out last week, which outlines a treatment protocol that can be used not only for brain cancer, but for all major cancers.
Nice.
What we have discovered, and others know as well, but they choose to do things differently. The tumor cell cannot survive without the sugar glucose and the amino acid glutamine. So, which is the fuel that drives the dysregulated growth. Now, it's and those two fuels can be targeted and reduced by diet and drugs, but you have to know how to do it. You don't want to cause any harm or distress to the cancer patient at all. You can kill cancer cells without going bald, having the hair fall out, without having diarrhea, all this terrible hazardous thing. You may need some surgical resection. What we can do is we can shrink tumors down, make them very, very small, and then surgery can remove them without removing other parts of your organs or tissues and things like this.
Yeah.
So, but the problem, there's two major problems with our research. Number one is very few oncologists understand what I'm talking about.
Oh, wow.
They were never trained.
Sounds like a big problem, actually.
Yeah, they have no training. They have no clue. They only use these toxic drugs because they were trained to use this, and radiation and other poisonous chemicals. They were trained to do that as part of what we call the standard of care. That's number one. Number two is that metabolic therapy for managing cancer has not yet is still trying to figure out how to make money on this. A lot of these.
At the end of the day, it comes down to the money.
It comes down a lot to the money. I would say, we're not. I hate to say it. Water-only fasting and repurposed cheap drugs and stuff like this to manage cancer without toxicity is not consistent with the business model that exists in all major oncology centers throughout the world. They mindlessly go about what they do. They've been indoctrinated. They never think about other than what they've been trained to do. And then when you tell them, they don't want to believe you. So that this is a metabolic disease cannot survive without glucose and glutamine, and they cannot switch to fatty acids and ketone bodies. I say that over and over and over again. And then they keep telling me, oh, no, cancer cells are tough. They can use everything. No, they can't. I did the research myself. I tested all these things. I published this information, and they ignore it. So what are you going to do?
I understand that. The medical industry, though, are they want to be stuck in their ways? Because I believe that things have had to change with time when it comes to medicine and how diseases are treated. So the fact that it seems like for the oncologists, they're a bit stuck in their way, that's sad to hear, honestly. Because, haven't we evolved over the times? Hasn't things changed from time till now? And, the economic factor is definitely a thing, and I mean, we live in a world that's ruled by money, so some things things can change.
Yeah, well, I think some smart people have to figure out how to make money on metabolic therapy.
It's possible.
I guess.
Do you think it's possible?
I don't know. My job was to show that I could manage cancer without toxicity and keep people alive a lot longer with a higher quality of life. And for me, that's a reward enough in itself. I don't need to make $1 billion on doing this stuff. I just know somebody else will, but it ain't going to be me.
It ain't going to be you. Because you did your part, actually. You did do your part, and you did good.
Yeah, I did my part. I have a very nice job at a major prestigious university. Well, I'm not hungry.
Would you mind consulting to someone that might have the potentials of finding out how to make money out of metabolic therapy in cancer?
Well, they just have to read my papers and they can figure it out for themselves. I've had a lot of so-called smart people visit me to tell me how they can take what I've developed and make money out of, but I never hear from them again.
Haven't seen them do it.
The only thing we know is people get healthier and they seem to feel better, and to me that tells me that we're on the right path. Yes, it's going to have to require a whole new training program. The entire oncology field is going to have to be retrained. Now, treating patients with metabolic therapy is going to be a challenge in and of itself. You have to know how to use the diets and the drugs and do the measurements yourself and know how to keep people on a healthy course of action and follow the growth of the tumor using non-invasive procedures. We don't want to stab or take biopsies or any of that crazy stuff. We can look at the tumor using non-invasive imaging and know whether or not it's gone or still there. And don't forget, we don't claim to cure cancer here.
Yeah.
The purpose of metabolic therapy is to allow people to manage their cancer with less toxicity and improve both quality of life and overall survival. Whether they're cured or not, we have no idea. All we know is that many of the people who do metabolic therapy and are successful feel very, very healthy. They never go bald, never lose their hair. They don't have diarrhea, fatigue, nausea, vomit. They don't have any of that stuff. So, but they find out that they can do this. And don't forget, it's not easy. I don't want to make this out like, oh my God, you try not eating for a week. You try just drinking water. For those things, you have to be very. A lot of the success falls on the shoulders of the patient. The patient has to be a major participant in this whole thing. And a lot of people don't like to do that.
Yeah,
so I always say, go.
Yeah, it's easier. Is in my opinion, I feel like it's easier to pay big bucks of money to just get the cancer fried out of your body, as opposed to succumbing yourself to a very healthy, strict diet, and drinking only water, like you said, and all of that. That is tough. And to be honest, most people would rather take the easy way out. And I'm not just talking about this. I'm talking about like every aspect of life.
Listen.
People would rather take the easy way out as opposed to the harder way out. And in my opinion, metabolic treatment is the hard way out. Yeah.
Well, we don't ever tell anybody they should not be irradiated, poisoned, or surgically mutilated. Anybody who would want to be poisoned, irradiated, and surgically mutilated, then that will always be there for them. We're just telling people that there's an alternative to doing that, and they have to know about it, and they have to become somewhat scientifically literate to know about this, and then they have the choice. They can either take the fast way out and be poisoned and irradiated, or they can do metabolic therapy, or some combination of both. It's important to recognize that many of the very poisonous, toxic treatments can work better when the patient is in nutritional ketosis. And they have to reduce the dosage and timing of the toxic treatments to match the metabolic process. So it's not one way or the other way.
Yeah.
There's a blending here as well. We know that some of the immunotherapies that you hear a lot of people talking about, PD-L1 inhibitors, PD-1 inhibitors, and CAR T immunotherapy, they'll all work a hell of a lot better if the patient is in nutritional ketosis. So it's a win-win situation if you really think about it that way.
Nice. Okay, one of the key points you often bring up is the fermentation process, particularly in cancer cells. For many of us who aren't experts, can you explain what fermentation is and why it's important in your cancer research?
Well, a fermentation is referred to as energy without oxygen. So we have a lot of organisms on the planet that ferment. That means getting energy without oxygen. Okay. Some yeast can do this. You know, when we make bread and alcohol and things, some of these yeast cells can continue to make energy without oxygen. And cancer cells are known to use to get energy without oxygen. It's called lactic acid fermentation. And what we discovered here is succinic acid fermentation using glutamine as a fuel. So how do we know this? Because we can take cancer cells and grow them in the absence of oxygen, and they still live. And we know that because they as long as they have the sugar glucose and the amino acid glutamine in their environment, they can get energy in the absence of oxygen. Now, let me give you another example. We all know that the poison cyanide. Cyanide is a very toxic poison. If people take cyanide, they die instantly because it stops oxidative phosphorylation. We breathe air, and the air that we breathe allows our cells to generate energy to do what we're doing. I'm talking to you, you're listening to me. All that's based on energy from oxygen. If I or you, God forbid, took cyanide, we'd be dead in 1 minute, almost instantly dead. Cancer cells don't die from cyanide. You can grow cancer cells in cyanide, and they're just fine. That tells you they're not using oxygen for energy. So that's called fermentation metabolism, energy without oxygen. And then you have to say, well, what are the fuels allowing them to make energy without oxygen? And it's the sugar glucose, the glucose and the glutamine amino acid. So if I take away glucose and glutamine, what happens to the cancer cell? They die. All right. So, okay. So and then you transition. The cancer cells cannot use fatty acids or ketone bodies for energy because the mitochondria in the cancer cell is broken. It's inefficient. So you take the whole body and transition to ketones and fatty acids, and then you lower the sugar down real low. The brain can burn ketone bodies. A heart can burn fatty acids. All the other organs can switch over to fatty acids and ketones, not the tumor cell. So once you bring the body into low glucose and high ketones, then you're starving the tumor cells of their sugar. Then you come in with the glutamine targeting drugs, and you kill them off. Now, people say, oh, this is too simple. And I said, well, you show me a tumor cell that can live without glucose and glutamine. I'll be very impressed. They can't find them. They're not there. So it tells you how simple cancer is. It's not a complicated disorder. Everybody thinks cancer is a genetic disease, thousands and millions of mutations and all this kind of stuff. It's not that. We've already shown it's not that. So why does everybody think cancer is a genetic disease? And it's called dogmatic ideology. They've been brainwashed to think cancer is a genetic disease because they read about it in all the textbooks, all the medical schools. Everybody says cancer is a genetic disease. They're brainwashed. They're indoctrinated.
And they're stuck in their ways.
And then yeah, they're very stuck in their ways. And then the other thing too is confirmation bias. If all the textbooks and NIH and all these groups think cancer is a genetic disease, how can I come along and tell them it's not? Well, I read the scientific literature. I understand it. I don't know if they ignore it. I don't know what's going on with that. It's funny, right?
Yes, it is funny because you can't actually do it on your own. Like you've really done the best you can. Honestly, you really have.
Before we dive back into today's episode, a quick shout out to our amazing sponsors, Crushberry Mart and Reboot Ultra Wellness. You can log into www.crushberrymart.com. Alternatively, download Crushberry Mart app on Play Store for all essentials, fruits, veggies, and nuts to keep your body healthy. Ensures you never miss a moment. Stay charged, stay ready as we dive back into the show.
But I'm not going to act like I know what ketones are. Can you explain that to like a layman?
Yeah. Well, ketone bodies, we evolved. Don't forget, a human, we've been like 500,000, maybe 1 million years on this planet, coming out of Africa. We've been around a while, and we didn't have Dunkin' sugars and fast foods, and we didn't have that. We had to survive by killing and eating animals, and we had to chase them down and hunt them down and chop them up. Right? We were not vegetarians, and we were not vegetarians and vegans and all this kind of crazy stuff. Not that people can live; they can do all that. But we evolved to kill and eat animals. That's who we are, and because you get tremendous energy from eating organ meat and this other kind of stuff. But in between these feasts, we had to use energy. We're not eating for a Lord. We have a lot of exercise and very little highly processed carbohydrate. No highly processed carbohydrates. So what happens is our bodies are supremely designed to store energy, fat, and then when we don't eat, the fat comes out of the adipocytes, goes to our liver. Now, these fatty acids are long chains of carbon-hydrogen bonds, and they go to the liver, and the liver chops those fatty acids up into smaller water-soluble byproducts called ketone bodies. They are simply water-soluble fat breakdown products, and they can replace glucose. They can replace sugar, glucose, for our organs. So we evolved to do that. We were human beings, regardless of whether they were in Africa, in the Arctic, in the jungles, in cold ices. We actually evolved to survive on minimal amounts of food. We're a very good species for storing energy. And that allows us to function when we haven't eaten for a while. Today, unfortunately, in society today, we have a diet and lifestyle that's spread around the world, and we have obesity epidemic, all these chronic diseases. They're all the result of our incredible evolutionarily capacity to store energy. So when people say I don't understand biological evolution, I said, well, you should see. Do you understand the obesity epidemic? Do you understand we have an obesity epidemic? That is evolution in action. Those people that are obese today are the descendants of ancestors that were able to store and maximize energy efficiency, and it cuts across all races and nationalities. Yeah. We are all the same people. We have evolved to function in minimal amounts of food. The problem is our technology has evolved so much faster than our biology. And now we have obesity, we have type 2 diabetes, we have chronic diseases. This is all the result of us processing foods to make it easier for us to survive. Now we have all these chronic diseases. Listen, in Paleolithic times, whether you're Africa or Europe or Asia, wherever, in Paleolithic times, the number one killer of human beings was injuries and infections. You would be injured, you couldn't repair your body, or you got an infection or something like this. That would kill you. Today, what's killing you is cancer, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes. All of these chronic diseases are killing us. We now know how to repair broken bones, and when you have an infection, we have an antibody. So we've taken care of infections and injuries, but now we're dying from chronic diseases, which is cancer and cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, as the result of our unbelievable excess of highly carbohydrate, highly processed foods, together with chemicals in the environment, together with minimal exercise, together with stress. You put bad sleep, all these things create the problems that we have. Not a mystery here. Not a mystery.
Honestly, it is. What lifestyle choices are causing cancer to develop? Like, I know you've shed some light on it, but I'm sure there are other like lifestyle choices that people currently have or could have, and it's like detrimental to their health.
Oh yeah, well I talk about this to my students in the class and other people. We have the cancer diet and lifestyle. For those people who really want to get cancer, they feel that they in order to be recognized they must get a big tumor somewhere. Okay, so let's go through what you need to do to get cancer. And then if you don't want cancer, don't do what I'm going to tell you to do, okay?
Okay, let's do that.
Okay, so the first thing if you want to get cancer, you have to make sure you never exercise. You have to be sure that you only sit around and you eat a large amount of highly processed foods. Just sit on the couch, don't do anything. Just sit in front of the refrigerator, eat all the time, and make sure what you eat is all processed foods, no natural foods at all. You must only eat processed foods. Foods that have a lot of high fructose corn syrup is a very good one, high fructose corn syrup. Make sure you have no happiness in your life. Make sure you have no friends. Make sure you feel bad all the time. Also, make sure you do not get a good night's sleep. So you have to be poor sleep at night. If you make sure someone comes into your room and shakes you and wakes you up in the middle of the night and gives you high sweet donuts and pizza and drink Coca-Cola, then go back and have a uncomfortable night's sleep. So make sure you have tremendous emotional stress. You have to have a lot of emotional stress. So one of the best ways is go on your cell phone or computer and read about all the bad things people are telling you on Facebook and all these kinds of things. Make you feel depressed. Make you feel really bad. Eat all the bad processed food. Don't get a good sleep. Never exercise. And you will then be a prime candidate for getting cancer.
Audience, please, he's being sarcastic. Don't do these things. He's trying to tell you not to do these things, or you have cancer. And it's so funny to think.
Well, no, wait a minute.
Most of the things sorry, okay?
No, listen. If that doesn't give you cancer, you can always be assured you will get type 2 diabetes or cardiovascular disease. If cancer doesn't get you, one of those other things will get you.
Oh my days! But it's so funny to think that most of the things you just listed out are things that people are actively doing right now, and they're healthy.
Oh,
they're healthy right now, but time is going to tell.
Yeah, well, you have to, in order to get cancer, you have to damage your mitochondria in the different tissues. It's a chronic damage. Don't forget, it's not acute. You don't go to bed one night and wake up with a big tumor the next day. You have to have chronic damage. What I told you, the diet and lifestyle, cancer diet and lifestyle, has to be done every day for sometimes years before you can get the cancer. So it's not something that happens quickly.
Definitely. It's something that, and it's the little things. It's the little things. It's always the little things. The idea that cancer runs in families is a common belief as well. But how much of a role does genetics actually play in cancer development?
Well, yeah, a lot of those folks that are they say, well, our family has a lot of cancer. A lot of times they all have the same diet and lifestyle as well. So it's hard.
Generational patterns, generational diseases, hand in hand.
Yeah.
Perfect sense.
Hand in hand. Now, there are some risk factors. There's no question about it. There's some genetic risk factors that have been recognized. The issue is they're not 100% penetrant. And what that means in genetics is that you could have the mutation that puts you at risk for breast cancer, but there's other factors that determine whether or not you get breast cancer. Because, say, for the BRCA1 mutation, which puts women at risk for some breast tumor, about 50% of women have the mutation but never develop breast cancer. So there are other factors to interfere with what they call a genetic risk factor. So what we call genetic risk factors are inherited genes in the family that put you at risk for potentially getting a tumor. But it's because it's not 100%, there's no guarantee that that genetic risk factor will give you cancer. And if you so happen to inherit a risk factor, you can change your diet and lifestyle to make that risk factor even much lower risk. So there's a lot of things, like the famous movie actress Angelina Jolie. She had her breasts removed and ovary removed to prevent cancer from BRCA1 mutation. She made that famous. She told people about this. But, you know, if she were to do a diet and lifestyle, keeping in therapeutic ketosis, which many movie actors and actors have to do anyway, she could have prevented even more. But because people think cancer is definitely a genetic disease, they go out and overreact to certain kinds of things. So I would never recommend that kind of stuff. But people do it, and they're free to do whatever they want to do.
Right.
But the issue, the issue here is that, yes, there are genetic risk factors, just like there are risk factors if you live in an area full of chemical carcinogens. That's a risk factor as well. Dirty environments, bad water, all of these things can put you at risk for cancer, together with the diet and lifestyle issues.
As well.
So there's a lot of factors. All we know is one thing. All cancers start with damage from oxidative phosphorylation, the mitochondria. We have never found a cancer with normal mitochondria, the organelle that produces energy efficiently through oxygen. So clearly, if you protect your mitochondria in your cells, it becomes extremely difficult to get cancer.
So you've been answering questions that I haven't even asked yet, just right before I asked them, because I was just about to ask about the mitochondria and how we can keep it healthy.
Yeah, well, I would say to keep your mitochondria healthy, do everything the opposite of what I told you to get cancer. So just take everything. Have a lot of friends, get good night's sleep,
Exercise.
Eat natural foods, get a lot of exercise every day, do all the things, reduce stress, reduce smoking, everything in moderation. The problem, unfortunately, human beings are not moderate. We are extremists in many ways. We have to do everything like to an excess of one form or another. The moderate man and woman is very rare on this planet, I think.
True.
Regardless
true.
of what.
True.
You know,
there's
we always want to do something.
There's no moderation,
Yeah, it's the same.
nothing. Like on the internet now, there's no secrecy. There's no everyone is just saying anything. Like there's no moderation anywhere out here. It's like anybody can come online and say anything. And before, when the internet just started popping and when social media started popping, we had like some restrictions. We had some boundaries, you know. Now the boundaries are lost. Because like you said, we human beings, a lot of human beings cannot do things without going extreme.
Yeah. That's who we are. I don't care if you're an we're all the same. We're all the same.
We are actually all the same, and I can't even judge because I can be extreme myself as well, and I can't help it sometimes. But I mean, if society fully embraced your perspective on cancer, how do you think the statistics would change in terms of cancer diagnosis, treatments, and outcomes?
Well, I think if people were treated with there's two things here. That's a loaded question. It's loaded. It's loaded because you overlap prevention with treatment. So in one case, if you do the things that I mentioned, your risk for getting cancer is already very low. So like you said, the extreme person only will do something after they get cancer. Now that you have cancer, now you're willing to do the things you should have done to prevent cancer, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So you'd have to then go and do these things. But you have to be a little bit more extreme if you're trying to manage the cancer than if you're trying to prevent cancer. Because the management will require some use of drugs to target the glutamine, where prevention, exercise will lower blood sugar and lower glutamine at the same time. So if you do a lot of the things to prevent cancer, you don't have to go as extreme. But as you said, you have to know what to do once you get cancer and how to approach that.
Well, I think you did a great job with this conversation, sir, because I didn't even have to ask you all of the questions, but you somehow touched all the parts that we were looking to touch in this conversation. So thank you so much for your time. But I just have like 2 more questions, and then we can call it a night, right? This one isn't about cancer. It's quite personal, but I'm really curious. Do you have grandchildren?
Yes.
How many?
7.
Okay. Are you really like attached to them like grandparents typically are?
Well, yeah, well, I try to be, but 2 of my children live in different areas of the country, so you have to go and make special arrangements to get there. You can't see them on a daily basis or a weekly basis.
But FaceTime
so I
and
have
stuff.
to go. Yeah, you have to. I go there in Tennessee and Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm in Boston, so you have to make arrangements. You see them during holidays and things like this, but yes, I like to. Of course, we all like to tell them. I like to learn from them.
Nice.
I always ask them, what new information can you give me? I need to learn stuff from the young people so I know what to do. And I do the same thing with my students here at the university, too. I says you try to educate them, and I want to learn what they're learning. I want to know what they know.
Nice.
So we keep the generations at least linked
Right?
to some degree.
And you don't find Gen Z or our generation, you don't find us overwhelming?
Well, what I find, and you'll come to know, too, we all go through our young periods and we learn and we see things, and then we become very familiar. But as time goes by, the next generation never hears of these people. Mm-hmm. I asked some of my students, who Clark Gable was a very famous movie actor, Clark Gable. A lot of the students today never heard of this guy. Bob Hope and Clark Gable, Gone with the Wind, these movies that were blockbuster movies in the old days, a lot of the kids today never hear. So I said to them, they hear Taylor Swift, and they hear these singers, right? Beyonce and all these. And I said, when you're old like me, you'll ask your grandchildren, do you know Beyonce? I never heard of Beyonce. Who's Beyonce? So
I feel like we'll be so hurt. When that time comes, I will personally be so hurt that you don't.
Well, how do you think that's? How do you think I feel?
exactly how my friends feel. So you didn't know this person, and I'm like, I was born in 1999. How was I supposed to know them? I mean,
yeah,
lovely.
No, it's true. So this is what happens over time. They forget the superstars like Leonardo DiCaprio. He's a very famous actor, Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, he is.
The Titanic guy and all these. Listen, in 2 more generations, the kids will never even know who the hell Leonardo DiCaprio is. So that's what happens. You just bypass these experiences that you've had, and then you feel like, whoa, how can these people not know anything?
Right?
But
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, sir. The last question is because I want to know how much fulfillment you've been able to gather over the years doing this research. What's the most rewarding part of your work, and what keeps you motivated? I mean, you're young. I don't want to call you old, but you're young, right?
Oh, I don't know. Ask my wife. She'll tell you something different.
I love that. But I mean, you seem very hearty, very cheerful. Like you're not acting your age, and I don't even want to ask your age.
Yeah, I'm 78 years old. But I have to keep going because we're on the right path.
You are on the right path.
Yeah, and I have a job that's enjoyable. I can exercise every day. You know, I'm always working with young people because they're the new generation, and I think it's very fulfilling. And we're on a mission. Don't forget, there's a lot of people out there who think cancer is a genetic disease, and you have to be able to train them differently and talk to them. So it's a challenge, a very big challenge.
It is.
But it's okay because they'll all come to know. When you are my age, you will be treated with metabolic therapy, no question about it.
I believe that as well. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Seyfried. Seyfried, right? Seyfried.
Close enough.
Oh my God, I got it wrong still. But thank you so much for your time. I enjoyed this conversation so much. And I know our audience have been able to learn a few things. And we've reimagined what cancer is like. And now we have the right knowledge to fight it the right way, in a way that is not toxic to us or killing us or harming us in any way. Thank you so much for your time, sir. And have a good night. Thank you for tuning in to the Reboot Wellness Podcast. I hope today's episode brought you one step closer to living your best, most intentional life. Don't forget to hit subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform so you'll never miss an episode. If you found this episode helpful, share it with someone who could use a little reboot in their lives. Until next time, stay blessed, stay mindful, and keep showing up for yourself. Take care.